Our final speaker of the night is Michael Ian Black. He is what we call in the business a triple threat. He is an actor, a comedian, and a writer. He started his career with the sketch comedy show The State on MTV. And since then, he's created many other TV shows. His his movie appearances include Wet Hot American Summer, The Baxter, and Sextuplets. He's the author of several books for children, including the award-winning I'm Bored, I'm Sad, and I'm Worried. But his newest book is for adults. It's A Better Man, a mostly serious letter to my son. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Ian Black. Over to you.
Well, I don't know how many people here have young children. I no longer do. My children are now 19 and 17. But what I learned about having young children is it's no fun. It's no fun taking them on vacation because their needs, as they should, will surpass my needs, which are to lay about and do nothing. But children don't enjoy that. They like to do things and go places and swim. In 2006, when my son was about 5 and my daughter was maybe 3, we went to the island of Nantucket for the first time. I'd never been there. I didn't know anything about it. It's an old whaling community that has since been overrun with rich people. And so if you want to go there, you have to spend more money than I thought I should spend to rent a house that was much smaller than I thought it should be, considering the amount of money that I was spending. And I was in a foul mood on the whole idea of going to Nantucket because I knew it would be a lot of complaining from my children about everything. When we go to Nantucket, we are immediately charmed beyond recognition. I'm just charmed by this old whaling town. It's wood shingled houses and adorable shops and shishi restaurants. And I'm charmed by our tiny little cottage that we have rented for an exorbitant amount of money. My children seem happy, and it is, as they say, all good things. We spend our first full day there beaching and sunning and swimming, though no fireworks. We retire to a restaurant for dinner, and by the time we arrive back at our cozy little cottage, it is late for us because we are the parents of 2 small children. It is between maybe 10 and 11 o'clock at night. And there is an emergency. My son travels at that time with 3 dear companions. Blanky, which is his blanket. Barry, which is his stuffed bear. And Bunny, which, as you can probably guess at this point, is his stuffed bunny. My son was not great at naming things. He has since gotten better. Blanky and Barry are in the house where he has left them on his little guest bed. Bunny had traveled with us that day to the beach and to the restaurant. And then we thought back to the cottage, but when we return, Bunny is no longer among us. And what had been really a fairly delightful day, in spite of my fears and expectations, suddenly became traumatic because Bunny was very dear to him, perhaps the dearest of the 3. And he's in hysterics. Where's Bunny? What happened to Bunny? Why don't we have Bunny? And we retrace our steps. We know Bunny had made the trip from the beach to the restaurant. We know Bunny had been in the restaurant. Did he leave Bunny in the restaurant we call? There's no Bunny anywhere in the restaurant. He must have left Bunny in the cab from the restaurant to the little cottage. And my son is really just beside himself, weeping and shuddering and sobbing, just very heartbroken, kind of panicked. And I'm exhausted from the day, from the stress of vacationing with the children. And my thought and I verbalized this thought, is you will be fine without Bunny, because we didn't know what cab company we had hired. We didn't know which cab. We didn't know the driver of said cab. It was late. There was no possible way we were going to retrieve Bunny, certainly not that night. And I'm trying to convey this information to my 5-year-old son, who is not having it. To him, this is existential, a word that Ian used earlier to describe our macro situation. I am using it to describe this decidedly micro situation. And I'm basically saying it's going to be fine. Just go to bed. We'll deal with it another time, if at all, is what I'm thinking. But my wife is looking at me like I'm the worst human being that has ever strode this earth. She is going to take it upon her shoulders to retrieve Bunny this very eve. Because for my son, there will be no sleep if we don't get Bunny back. So she says, first of all, she says, I'm going to divorce you when this is over. Second of all, I am going to call every single cab company on this island until we find out who took us, who the driver was, and if we can get Bunny back. And I said to her, what you're describing isn't possible. The divorce part, yes, was possible, but retrieving Bunny was not going to be possible. And I was so annoyed. I just wanted to go to sleep. I was exhausted from the sun. I was stewing. My wife gets on the phone. And to my shock and surprise, within an hour, Bunny is back in my son's arms. He had left it in a cab. Turns out, perhaps unsurprisingly, there aren't that many cab companies on the tiny island of Nantucket. She had figured out somehow which cab company we had used. The dispatch had contacted all drivers, put out an APB for Bunny. A driver responded. The driver had Bunny. The driver returned Bunny to our cottage and collected a fine reward. My son's gratitude was immense, of course, towards my wife, not towards me, because I hadn't earned his gratitude in any way, shape, or form. The crisis was averted. The vacation was enjoyed and could be the vacation could proceed. And once he had Bunny, then he had gone to sleep. And I was able to relax and reflect a moment. I realized what an absolute heel I had been and how badly I had let him down. Because to me, losing the stuffed animal was a petty annoyance. And for him, it was like losing a best friend. And I had been utterly indifferent to his suffering. And I had fallen into the trap that so many generations of men fall into, which is to say to our sons, suck it up, man up. You're 5 years old, for God's sake. You don't need a stuffed bunny. And it was in that moment, like I felt for the first time, like acutely, that I was being a bad dad. And I have had many moments of being a bad dad. But that moment really struck me as, yeah, perfect example of terrible parenting and atrocious fatherhood. So the question is, would I have done this? Would I have reacted this same way towards my daughter? Probably, because I am an impatient man. But I think I would have been gentler about it. And having learned the lesson with my son, hopefully, I wouldn't make the same mistake again. But it just served to remind me that as progressive as I like to think of myself, and as much as I like to pat myself on the back for my enlightened attitudes, when push comes to shove, I can be just as much of a macho, overbearing dickhead as the next guy. And my own latent, sexism, patriarchal attitudes, bad parenting showed up in a totally unexpected way in a little house on Nantucket. And hopefully, I learned my lesson. Thank you.